Upon such simple facts we might have supposed the musical scale to be founded. But when we come to tune a pianoforte and raise the fifths one upon another, to our surprise we find the last note C too sharp for the C we set out with. This inexplicable difficulty no one has attempted to solve. The deity seems to have left music in an unfinished state to show his inscrutable power.
Hi, and thanks for joining me today. Before I proceed, I would like to thank everybody who's been supporting me since I started this channel. I've passed my 100th subscriber, and I have over 10,000 aggregate views, so thank you to everybody for support. It's not quite up there with Taylor Swift or Uptown Funk, but I am still pleased with the response that I've been getting so far. So again, thank you to everybody for your support. So today we're going to be talking about tempered systems, temperament in music. Before you watch this video though, I would recommend that you watch some of my other videos first to get a little bit of background information. The ones that would be good to watch include the one on overtones and harmonics, both of the videos on musical intervals, and it's also the one on the circle of fifths. So take a few minutes to watch those, maybe review them before proceeding with this one. So the first question is, what is tempering in music and why do we do it?
I went to the internet and I looked at a bunch of different definitions of temperament, and a lot of them were not very useful, which I found to be interesting. I did find this one, which I think is fine for our purposes. Let's go to number 4 in the listing here as it pertains to music. So temperament, according to this definition, is the tuning of a keyboard instrument such as the piano, organ, or harpsichord, so that the instrument may be played in all keys without further tuning. It also refers to a particular system of doing what we just said.
So you may be wondering to yourself, why adjust the tunings at all? Aren't things just fine without our monkeying around with them? The short answer is no. So I'll try to illustrate this as well as I can using a piano. Now let's pretend for a minute that this piano is not tempered. It actually is, but let's pretend that it's not. Let's pretend that all the tones here are tuned to perfect pitches instead of adjusted pitches. Excuse me. Now, if they were all perfect pitches, all the octaves would be exact multiples of each other. Okay, and there would be no problem. Now, but here's the interesting thing. Let's say I start at this low C down here. If I go up by perfect fifths, sooner or later, I will get to another C, and I'll show you. So here's a low C. And finally, I get back to C natural. Now again, if this were in perfect tuning, perfect pitches, the C natural that I ended up with would be sharper than the C going only by octaves, right? But they can't both be true at the same time. And therein lies the rub, the linchpin of our problem with tones and the need to temper them.
Okay, this is a mathematical representation of what we just saw on the piano. It's not as bad as it looks, so take it easy. Okay, the top line talks about the fifths that we did going up from the low note all the way to the high note. Excuse me. Now, why 3/2 for each fifth jump? Well, if you were to take a string and pluck it along its length, that's its entire length, and that'll give you some pitch. Now, if you were to stop the string at 2/3 of that length, the resulting pitch will be exactly 1/5 higher than the one you started with. So now picture the string. You've got 2/3 represented by the fifth, and you have 3/3 of the whole thing represented by the entire length. So that gives you the proportion of 3/2 as indicated here. So 3/2 represents that jump of 1/5 higher. And as you'll see, we needed to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 jumps to get to a tone that should have corresponded to the letter name pitch as that we started with. Now the second line looks at a bunch of octave jumps. Let's go back to that same open string that we talked about. We plug it again. That's that same pitch that we talked about in the first example. Now, if you were to stop it at exactly half of its length, each of those half lengths will sound exactly 1 octave higher than the original sound. So you have a half versus 1. That gives us our 2 and our 1 indicators. So to jump 1 octave, we're going 2 times the frequency, and then another octave, and so on. And in order to go up a number of octaves so that we reach that same pitch that we had with the 5th jumps, we'll end up jumping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 octaves. Now, as you see, if you look at the math involved, the product of the first series of jumps will give you a frequency of 129.746 times higher than what you started with. But in the second case, with just the octave jumps, you'll end up with a frequency that's 128 times higher than what you started with. We would like them to be the same, but they're not. And so we need to make some changes in order for them to be the same.
Now, this phenomenon has been known by musicians for centuries, and musicians through the ages have adjusted to it, and a number of different systems have been developed along the way in order to come up with answers to the problem. The system that's in pretty much universal use today is called equal temperament. In it, all of the 12 tones, that is, between one octave and the next, are divided into equal parts. Try to remember that the whole system is one big compromise. On the one hand, we want to have all the pitches be perfect so that it sounds terrific. And on the other hand, we want to be able to modulate from one key to any other key and have that sound perfect. But we can't do both at the same time. So as I say, it is a big compromise. Now, there's a book that I read recently which really opened up my eyes to this whole situation. It's an extremely informative book. It's very clearly written. I really recommend it to anybody who is interested in exploring this further, and this is also the source from which I took the quotes that appear in this video. The book, as you see it, is called Why Equal Temperament Ruined Harmony and Why You Should Care. Okay? And it's written by a gentleman named Ross Duffin. So I strongly recommend this book to anybody who may be interested in further reading on this subject. Well, I hope you found this to be informative and interesting. Personally, I think this stuff is just fascinating. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope to see you again next time.